Good, happy Wednesday evening, April 8, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this evening edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this evening, so let's begin. We have breaking news we want to get to first. 10 COVID-19 deaths linked to outbreak at New Hampshire long-term facilities, officials say. 5 more deaths attributed to coronavirus announced. 10 recent deaths linked to COVID-19 in New Hampshire were in long-term facilities or nursing homes, state health officials said Wednesday. The deaths were linked to outbreaks at the 3 facilities in which residents and staff members were affected, said Lori Shipperton, Commissioner of Department of Health and Human Services. Shipperton said 37 residents and 13 staff members at Hanover Hill Healthcare Center in Manchester tested positive for COVID-19, and 4 people have died. The outbreak has been confined to one floor of the facility, Shipperton said. 19 residents and 11 staff members in the assisted living facility at the Huntington at Nashua tested positive for the coronavirus, and 5 people have died, Shipperton said. There have been no new cases detected in the facility in the past 3 days, but Shipperton said there are still staff members who have tested positive. 3 residents and 11 staff members at Crotchet Mountain Residential Care Facility have tested positive, and 1 person has died, Shipperton said. In addition to those outbreaks, more than 10 other long-term care facilities have had isolated COVID-19 tests in residents or staff, Shipperton said. We're not going to report on all of those isolated incidents, but if those facilities start to experience something similar to an outbreak, we will work with them, as we have done with the 3 facilities that I have just named, to do public releases and be very transparent with their communities, she said. Shipperton said there were 5 more deaths linked to COVID-19 in New Hampshire as of Wednesday morning. There were 41 new cases confirmed, bringing the total number of cases in the state to 788, Shipperton said. 118 people have been hospitalized. Governor Chris Sununu said it's a positive sign that there have been fewer newly confirmed cases recently than the current peak daily cases of 81 on April 4th, but it's too early to know if that's a sign that the spread of COVID-19 is slowing down. Now let's take a look at your coronavirus disease, COVID-19 in New Hampshire, what you need to know. Let's take a look. And here is a look at that new data for all of you. 788 number of people in New Hampshire who have tested positive for COVID-19. 3,099 number of people in the United States that have tested positive. 18 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 118 number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 12,911 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. This map of New Hampshire shows where the cases of COVID-19 are in cities and towns. In Pelham, 5 to 9 cases of COVID-19. New cases each day in New Hampshire. In the purple, daily new positive cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations. And in the red are the deaths. Common symptoms: fever, cough, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. Be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Neighbors of Durham nurse show support for his work. Residents line street holding signs. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Erin Salo.
At this time, many of us want to say thank you to those on the front line of this pandemic. And just check out the welcome home that this Durham neighborhood gave a nurse who lives on their street. Brian Schlender works in the ER at Portsmouth Hospital, and neighbors lined his street holding signs and sparklers for the former Army medic as he made his way home from work. He had a very important message for everyone when he got out of his car.
You guys all go home now, wash your hands.
Do you hear that? Go wash your hands, he says. Schlender, who feels that nursing is his calling, was surprised and overwhelmed by the show of support.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Gardner guarantees voting in September, November, even if pandemic continues. No one will be forced to choose between health, voting, and no law change needed, Secretary of State says. Secretary of State William Gardner on Wednesday issued a clear guarantee regarding voting in September state primary and November general election if the coronavirus pandemic is still reigning at that time. Answering questions of criticism being raised on social media, Gardner told WMUR no one will be forced to risk their health by showing up personally to vote at a polling place. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market closed for this Wednesday evening. And here's a look at that U.S. stock market for all of you for this Wednesday evening. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the green and went up. Your Nasdaq closed in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed in the red and went down. Oil closed in the green and went up. U.S. 10-year closed in the green and went up. Euro/USD closed in the green and went up. And VIX closed in the red and went down. Dow rallies 700 points, retakes 23,000 as market rebounds continue. Stocks surged on Wednesday after Senator Bernie Sanders dropped out of the presidential race, revealing some of Wall Street's political concerns and the economic crisis stemming from the coronavirus. Cardiologist warns of side effects with drug touted as coronavirus treatment. Let's take a listen to that video from MSNBC.
Dr. Hamblin, the president has been very vocal about his support for using hydroxychloroquine. There have been tests done with it, or people have been given it, and it's not clear how effective it's been. But what we are seeing is that some French hospitals are recommending not using that, Sweden as well, because of the negative side effects in terms of the cardiac effects. What do we know about this drug, and is it wise to be telling the American public that what do they have to lose? Why not try it?
It's definitely not wise to tell people that they have nothing to lose right now. This is a new disease to the human species, and it involves our immune system acting in strange ways that are sometimes helpful to us and sometimes are actually the cause of the problem and ultimately can end up ending our life. And this is a drug that can modulate those immune responses. So it's very possible that it could have some effect, and that some of the effect will sometimes be good and sometimes bad, depending on who takes it, in what amounts, at what point in the disease. And there are clinical trials ongoing right now to tell us exactly the answers to those questions, and we'll know. But it is the case that most people recover from this disease, and you don't want to risk taking something that could make it worse or could introduce a new problem before we know for sure that it's safe and effective.
Doctor, let me ask you about two conversations I've heard in the last 24 hours from serious people theorizing about what it will be like when we're, let's say, beyond the backside of the curve. Are we going to have, we heard that Disney may do temperature checks when they welcome guests back into their parks. Are we going to have routine temperature checks entering airports, restaurants, movie theaters, number one? Number two, people are going to be ultra wary of those who have it and are asymptomatic, those who have already had it, those who have not had it. And this serious person was asking, are we going to have some sort of marking system, Live Strong bracelets for people who, by dint of their profession, have to work in close proximity, have to deal with the public? How are we going to know what people are going to need to know?
That sounds like a pretty dystopian idea of marking people.
I know it.
But yeah, we're thinking this is unprecedented, uncharted territory, so I'm all for thinking outside the box. I think that until we have a vaccine and we feel like we have really good herd immunity, everything in life is going to be changed, and it is going to come in waves where we gradually reintroduce certain activities. And getting to the point of having mass gatherings like big concerts and festivals and having people feel comfortable and safe going to those things doesn't seem in the cards until we have that vaccination and herd immunity. But reopening, some businesses and letting people feel like they can have small social gatherings at certain points, depending how things progress, that will happen in certain areas. And some people will feel confident in doing that because they have the antibodies, and other people will not want to take chances. And it will be important that, everybody continues to think about everyone else in this, that even if they feel like they want to have a more aggressive policy towards reopening things earlier, that, we need to think about the people who are who could be most hurt by us doing that too quickly.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And thank you for watching this evening edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Good night and bye, everyone.